Yeah, that's why I have this little, I don't know, because I checked my whole career, and found my own training. I've always kept my.
Yeah.
I'm opposed to Queen and King.
All right, we're live. Yep.
Like to call to order July 26th Economic Development Meeting.
The first item on the agenda is roll call. Alicia Neth. Here. Adam Royds,
Here.
Sonny Creets,
Sonny
Kreitz, okay.
Here.
Steve Langley,
Here.
John Wallace. Kelly Kabilski,
Here.
Carol Noker,
Here.
Erica Winston,
Here.
and Dan Hartman.
Here.
Right. And then the next item is approval of the minutes from the June 28th regular meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? They were talking, I didn't know.
Okay.
All in favor? You good?
Aye. Aye.
All right, and the next item on the agenda is reports, but last time we had John Wallace here and now we have Sonny was able to make it for this meeting, so I figured we could do a quick introduction, and we do have some guest speakers tonight. So if you just want to go around the room and introduce yourself, that'd be great. And start, I can start. I'm Gina Pate. I am the Assistant City Administrator for the EDC or for the city, and I am the staff liaison for the EDC.
First meeting. I'd be here. Really have names and faces.
Good evening, Dan Hartman, Alderman, Ward 1. Adam Royds, I'm on Main Street Commission, Main Street District. I'm the chair of the Economic Vitality, and I do this.
Alicia Neth, I am chairwoman of EDC, president of Smithville Main Street District, and own a business downtown, and yeah, I think that's it.
Yes, Steve Langley, agribusiness background, been in Smithville since 2015.
Carol Noker with the Smithville School District, and I also sit as the district's rep on the Main Street Board.
Erica Winston from the Smithville Chamber of Commerce, and I sit on the Main Street Board as the chamber rep.
And then Kelly Kabilski. I never know what to say on these things. A little bit of everything. I'm just gonna put it that way. Business background, been here for 22 years, past alderman, lots of things. Let our guest speakers introduce.
Let our guest speakers introduce themselves when they get started. So we can go ahead with our reports. Chamber of Commerce, Erica.
Okay, our new members since the last meeting is Raising Rust Event Center, Bridge Street Hair Studio, Integrated Financial Solutions of KC, Just Like Home Vacation Rentals, and Lighted Up LLC. Our events coming up, we have the Rise and Shine on August 2nd from 7:30 in the morning to 9, sponsored by Security Bank. A ribbon cutting for Bridge Street Hair Studio is August 3rd at 5:30. They're also having an open house that day, beginning at 1 p.m. The luncheon is August 9th, sponsored by Smithville Community in Action. And then our next big event will be the Barbecue Bash, September 23rd. We've already got 14 teams signed up and about 13 spots left.
Great, thank you. And then Carol with the school district report.
Okay, I'll just give my real world learning kind of update, and then we also have a guest here. Dr. Moss is our new superintendent, so I'll let him give any other little updates. Not July, I have it written even, September 22nd is the date that we have slated for our high school career day, which is a pretty extensive event. I will be reaching out to probably each and every one of you to see if you'd like to participate. Basically, we want to give our students the opportunity to ask questions and explore different careers. So we have booths set up. The students come in shifts. They're allowed to go choose who they talk to. And this will be the second year doing it this way. And last year was a huge hit, really very successful. So I want to add some different career folk as well as mix it up a little bit. So hopefully have some different people there that they didn't get to talk to last year. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Moss?
I would just. We would just say thank you to the Board of Aldermen passed the site plan for the transportation facility that you can see the dirt being moved off Highway 92. You will also see a huge pile of dirt right now sitting on top of it. That is to try to compact the soil. When we did unearth everything, they said we could either pure it or compact the soil. So it's a lot cheaper to compact soil. So we're going to take about 6 weeks and do that. And then we've gotten a lot of positive feedback also with the passage of the April bond with connecting our main campus with sidewalks. And I can tell you the community is very excited for the commercial side of the city to connect that as well, which is part of the plans for next summer. So that's all been positive. We've had other updates with our bond, with our HVACs at Horizon in both the middle school, as well as several safety and security upgrades, particularly adding several more cameras. So just really appreciate the support from the April bond, as well as the feedback we're getting and the progress we've been able to make this over the last 2 months while the kids weren't there and all the events weren't occurring. So
Thank you.
That it for school district? All right, and then Alicia with the chairwoman's report.
Yes, so some of you may have noticed that we, Smithville Main Street District had to cancel the Whiskey Walk. We received a really nice cease and desist letter from a company in a whole other state, well, from their attorney, I guess, stating that the term Whiskey Walk has been trademarked. So we spoke with an attorney that was nice enough to give us some free feedback, and it was advised that we cancel as a show of good faith and completely rename it. So our next pedestrian themed alcohol event will be along with the barbecue bash and Junkville in September. That was the closest date that we had things. We're thinking bump outs in Bourbon, but we haven't narrowed that down yet. But that's what? Yeah. So we already had that date, for another event. We figured just combine them. It'd be a lot easier, a lot less work for our volunteers. Since we are a nonprofit with about 10 volunteers on a regular basis, it was nice of them to come after us and threaten us, but whatever. We had our rebranding meeting this week for Smithville Main Street District, and that's kind of going along with the wayfinding signage timeline. We're trying to kind of make sure everything looks a little cohesive with that. We narrowed it down to 2 options, and they're really exciting. So once we have those 2 polished up and ready, we'll put them out to the downtown businesses and then probably a few other community stakeholders to get their opinion on things. We also met with a group from Warrensburg, Missouri, their Main Street District, and they had some really cool ideas for downtown events, also working with the schools on some events and branching out to the rest of the community to get things down here. So that was really exciting. That is all I have.
All right, and then for the city staff report, since we had guest speakers tonight, I was going to wait until the next meeting for the website improvement discussion. So that'll be on the next agenda. And then in the packet, you can find the development updates that took place at the last Board of Aldermen meeting on July 18th. They approved the second reading of the funding agreement for the Fairview Crossing CID. Another ordinance they approved was the conditional use permit for a transfer station at Industrial Drive. And that was first reading. So the second reading will be on August 15th. They approved a resolution approving a final plat for First Park's third plat. And that is basically just splitting one plat into two industrial plats, so two lots. And then they also approved a resolution for a site plan for construction of 8 new storage buildings on 169. And then, as Dr. Moss mentioned earlier, they approved the site plan of the transportation facility for the high school, or at the high school. And then additionally, 110 Smithville, the TIF project, that will be on the August 1st Board of Aldermen meeting agenda at 7 p.m. It will be taking place in the chamber, and that'll be the only items on the agenda. There will be nothing else. And then that will be also Zoom. You can zoom in or you can watch it on the Facebook Live. And that is all the updates I have.
Can I ask a question? So the transfer stations in the industrial zoning,
Mhm.
so do we know how many lots we still have over there? Because I know we were looking at, it looks like they're starting to fill up because we don't have a very big
Yeah.
industrial zoned.
Yeah, I can
In
bring
general.
back information of the vacant lots at the next meeting and follow up with that.
What kind of transfer? Is that kind of like recycling?
So it is recycling. It's for specifically construction recycling. Yeah, and they have their own clients and everything. So it wouldn't be like a public facility. It's supposed to help, they're taking it all the way somewhere else. It'll help keep it here and reduce the level of their travel.
Do we have any idea of how many full-time employees?
I don't think they mentioned that at the Board of Aldermen meeting.
Okay, because we have a requirement for the Main Street that they want us to report up quality jobs that are the whole town.
Okay.
So, and that I think is full-time jobs that are probably over like 40, 50 grand, 10
Okay.
10 or more hires, the state of Missouri wants to know.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and that was just first reading. So the final approval still has to go on second reading. But that'd be great information to have, Kelly. Any other questions on those updates? All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to MU Extension, and they have a PowerPoint. I will. Get that.
Well, hi, guys. Thanks for having me back. I brought a couple of my colleagues with me, and hopefully this will be a process that we will continue when we want to talk about some other subjects. Because I did talk to Gina briefly a little bit about some of the horticulture things that were brought up and maybe some of the workforce development specialists that could come and talk at another time. But she asked today for us specifically to focus on community arts, our community arts program, and then particularly mural making. For the record, my name's GK Callahan. I'm one of the engagement specialists for the Urban West, which is Clay, Jackson, and Platte County. I have two colleagues here with me. Lindsay I was trying to say her name and I got it wrong. Tarasovic. I kept repeating it in my head, and then I would, of course, is also one of my new engagement specialists. So she's here just observing. She's new to the role. And then, of course, Elena here, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm Elena Stevenson. I'm a field specialist in community development with an emphasis in community arts and placemaking. So I work in Jackson, Clay, and Platte County. And we heard you want some murals. So we're excited to talk to you about some of the work we've been doing and what it could look like in this community too.
Yeah, so we're going to go through this fairly quickly to try to respect everyone's time. My background was in community arts before I became the engagement person, so I'll probably help Elena with this process, but she will eventually. She's new to us, but new to the arts or placemaking. So briefly, we're going to talk about our mission for those who missed the meeting last time I was here. We'll talk a little bit about some mural projects that we're working on now. Sort of the programming aspects, how we might phase it out, and then sort of benefits for the community, and maybe some other options. If we can figure out
The mouse
the mouse.
technology.
I think it's down in the corner. there.
Right here, there we go. It's thinking. Come on, oh. There we go.
Anyway, for those of you, last time I was here, you know, our land grant mission is to bring Mizzou to you. We basically bring research-based knowledge to residents, businesses, and municipalities to try to help them make more informed decisions. And we do that through a myriad of programs. In nutrition and health is one of our most popular programs. We also have workforce development, horticulture, and agriculture. We have a volunteer tax assistant financial program, which helps with taxes. I love to tout this number because I think it's really impressive. The last year, we brought in over $5 million in revenue back to low income and moderate income households through our tax program. So that's just something that we're really proud of. It's about 9,000 family household taxes a year that we help process in the Kansas City region. Of course, many of you in Smithville should be familiar with our 4-H youth program. That's our youth development arm of the University of Missouri. We also have community development, which is what we're going to focus on today through the arts, and then community health. Can you just do it for us, Gina? Thank you. I think Gina's just going to do it for us. Thank you. Yeah. So the community arts program is really done as a three-way partnership between us and Extension, the community we're working with, so Smithville in this case, and then the university to help bring in that research-based component. And we really do that through trying to enhance not just the economic development, but the community pride, the community benefit, you know, how you're involved and love your community and using the arts as that tool. We do that in many different ways. So some of the ways locally is we help with festival planning. So if anyone's ever seen or been to like North Kansas City Arts in the Park, we were on the initial planning board and we helped them put that festival on. And we've been doing that for a number of years. Also their Mistletoe Market. We ran for almost 40 years the St. Louis Storytelling Program. It was a program sponsored by the University of Missouri. It's now with the library system in St. Louis. We also help with asset mapping and help looking at a community's resources from a positive standpoint. That's another way that we do that specifically around the arts. We partner a lot with Arts KC and doing projects like that. And then Elena is going to talk here in just a second a little more about some of the placemaking work we're doing, particularly with Parkville at the moment, because it's a mural project. Oh, I'm going to go ahead.
Oh, and so we're super excited that you want to activate some art in some spaces, and we also placemaking sometimes represents non-traditional spaces too, so we can talk about that. But also we need money, right? Like arts have an economic impact that sometimes gets overlooked. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis reports that the arts and culture sector contributes almost 10 billion to Missouri's economy, representing 3.3% of the state's GDP, a larger share than several other industries in the state. Not only do murals help community members, but it also draws in tourism. People want to come and see the art in your community, and with that, they'll be patrons to local businesses, bars, retail shops, and they'll draw more traffic into your community. So there's definitely like a mutual benefit for having these placemaking areas in your community. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. Right now, we're working on the Parkville Alley beautification project. We are in phase 1 of this project, but the goal is to have murals activated by end of October. We have an artist call going up right now that ends this upcoming Monday. But local businesses bought into it. They again go and are aligned with that economic impact of if people come see these murals, they're going to walk into the shop, they're going to be patrons, and it's this again mutual benefit. Yeah.
Just for a little context, with the Parkville project, the Main Street Association in Parkville was really the spearhead of this project, and it's on an alley called where there's an alley bar on the project on the alley that's owned by the American Legion, and there's several businesses right there, and the alley needed a lot of love. But so they had in the past done a small little mural with some wings, and they were really surprised at how many people wanted to take their photo on front of these wings and how much it activated that space, just that little bit of mural. And so they had already kind of initially had this idea and pushed forward. It's not unsimilar to you guys. And then they came to us and they said, well, if you were going to do this, what would you do? So we kind of came to the table as the project had already gotten rolling, right? And so we were just really there to advise them on moving it forward. It's a partnership between Main Street and the city and now us. The great thing is the city is contributing a lot to this project. So like the paving of the alley, which I'm sure you guys know is an expensive thing. So, you know, that $10,000 or whatever the city is doing to pave the alley, that's a, you know, in-kind donation. They're also providing giant planters that are going to block the alley from cars moving down it. So it's going to keep the paving nice, but also keep someone from just parking there and trying to use it as a parking spot when you want people to use it as a photographic lane, right? And so that's just a little context of where it came from. So we were kind of invited to the table after they'd already started the project.
And you can go to the next, thank you. So this is the proposed budget and phasing that we have for this project, which we would probably mirror, try to do something similar if we wanted to activate some murals and some spaces in this community. But like GK said, initially we formed a partnership with Main Street Parkville. They came to us, they had this idea, they wanted extension support. And then from there, from there, we secured about $3,000 for artwork towards the beautification project. We also secured funding for another project with the Dorothy Day Cabin. So we got buy-in from the council, which is helpful as well. And then now we're in about phase 2. So the alley just got paved a few weeks ago. Like I said, the call is up currently for artists. We're getting a lot of strong candidates and as we speak that we're excited about to potentially work with. And then we have to manage that call for art. The jury process, the selection process will start towards the end of the summer with the goal of the murals being activated by end of October and the mural process starting in mid-September. And then phase 3 would be a launch or the ribbon cutting of these murals. And then similar to slide we presented before, it doesn't just stop at the mural, right? Of course, the murals are lovely to look at and community members are really proud to have them in their community, but there's also a lot of programming potential too. Like, could you do a community art project by these murals? Obviously, there's photo ops. Could you do a concert? Like, it's thinking about the end game and thinking outside of the box, not just we made this beautiful mural and painting for our community, but how can we continue to activate that space and keep that momentum going?
The other thing I just wanted to say here is the $3,000 is just for the painting of the mural, right? So that doesn't include the private business owners fixed up their own buildings, right? So people who owned the property, they tucked their brick, they had their brick repainted. That was something that the business owner donated towards the effort of this project, knowing that it was going to draw traffic for them. The city has paved the alley. Main Street has provided funding ahead of time to string lights up and down the alley. So the overall project budget is way larger than $3,000. I just wanted to give you an idea of what we think at the very low end it would cost just to get some artwork on the wall. And that all depends on scale, how many pieces of artwork you want, and then level of artist or artwork you're looking for. And I think it's important though, I think getting volunteer help is great. And I think you can get the community to do some things like prime the walls and some of those things to lower the cost. That I really like to say that artists should be paid for their time. They're asked to give their time away for free a lot. So I think as we go through this process, if we do it together or not, I just would hope that you would keep in mind that let's try to pay the artist if we're going to have them come do murals.
That's good. Really important to note that the 3,000 is for art, artists, supplies, etc. And we had additional funding. The city backed us too. So as far as the paving and restoration and getting it up to code, the city provided funding for that. So again, it is a collaboration. So steps for phasing in Smithville, again, location, figuring out and being strategic about that. Where do we want these murals to take place? Where would we draw community members in? Thinking outside the box too, like maybe it's a non-traditional space as well. And then again, getting that city leader support, understanding the codes, laws, and municipal code, and then buy-in from community members. You don't want to create this gorgeous mural and then community members be upset about it or like get feedback. We talked about this in meetings with Main Street Parkville. Like there was a lot of interest in having some kind of like what's charming about Parkville, what makes Parkville unique, and how can we incorporate that into the murals? Similar for this kind of project too, like what would make these murals maybe educational or distinct for your community, which helps that community member buy-in. And then project timeline is huge, and nailing down the phasing that is realistic, makes sense for all stakeholders. Securing funding is also very important. So that could be through grants or getting some sponsorships, getting city buy-in and support as well. And then I might be guessing, make sure the areas of Dakota with lighting too. Like for example, Parkville Alley is going to have like gallery lighting as well. And as you're trying to get buy-in, thinking about the functionality of doing these kinds of beautification projects, like, yes, it's lovely to have murals on the wall, but also, again, you can have programming for it. But you can also have it be multifunctional in the sense that like Parkville Alley has planters on each side because they were tired of trucks like parking in the alley and for safety. And then the lighting is also helpful for safety for late at night too, for people walking in downtown Parkville. So as you're trying to get that buy-in, thinking about the dual functions of having these spaces be amplified.
Yeah, another thing, just an example for code in Parkville, there was one of the businesses had a dumpster out in the alley. Well, you didn't really want a dumpster if you're going to put all this money into beautifying the alley. So they had to find an alternative location for that business's dumpster to go. So, again, working with city services, working with the business owner to relocate their trash services so that the alley could be used. So, I guess what we're trying to say in this whole list of things is it's not difficult. It's just going down the line and checking the boxes and make sure you're following all the codes. In Parkville, there's a code that all anything painted on city buildings has to go through planning and zoning. And so they have to be part of the process. So making sure that they knew what we were doing and that it went through planning and zoning so that we didn't start this mural, hire some people and then they were like, what the heck? Yeah, you got to take it up with it, and so just making sure you're doing your due diligence, basically. And I can have Gina send this out to you guys, the link to this. I quickly put together a few quick links here. There's a Visit Mo talking about driving tourism. They have a whole site for different communities that have numbers of murals around their community. Probably one of the closest to us, if anyone's been to Chillicothe, the home of sliced bread. They have when this article was written, there was 25 murals because they had a muralist that lived in their community. It drove a lot of traffic for them for a number of years. Sadly, that artist has passed away, but I think some other people in the community have picked it up and their mural numbers continuing to grow. They have one of the largest amounts of murals I think in the state of Missouri. Springfield also had a great article that I put up here. They have over 40 Instagram walls, basically murals in their community, but they use that as a way to drive traffic and use social media to drive that traffic. So people want to get their picture taken in front of the different things. So these are just some quick links here for you guys to reference if you want to know more about how murals can be important to your community.
And then too, I wanted to talk about potential artists in residence too. Another great thing about doing these murals, activating these spaces and communities is you're employing artists or you're getting artists involved in the community. And there's a lot of value to that. But thinking about outdoor programming or how could you have an artist in residence, maybe doing phasing of murals that kind of build off of each other. There's a lot of potential there. But art is a powerful tool for community development. And maybe I'm biased because I work in community arts, but I've seen it in action, the way it brings community members together and the way that it brings a sense of pride. Like GK said too, it helps mitigate against social isolation. You think about a lot of the community art pieces that came out of COVID too, as people were not wanting to stay isolated and wanting to be creative. And find community in that way. And it's public art brings people together from diverse backgrounds for a common goal. And then it also preserves national endowment. It promotes art history. It promotes the history of your community. And it can also advocate for social justice. If you think about like the Black Lives Matter murals along Trace that happened in 2020 as well, there also can be like a social justice component as well. So there's a lot of potential for storytelling and placemaking when you are working in community arts. And also, so again, my background is in community arts and I used to work for Johnson County Parks and Recreation. And I have a performing art background. So I love visual art. I love murals, but it doesn't have to stop there. So how could we activate, again, how could we activate these spaces, these murals, and maybe have a concert series or do some kind of live theater performance? You think of the way Shakespeare in the Park is so popular in Heart of America. Like, how could you have this lovely square that I saw when I drove in with so much programming potential? And how lovely would it be to have some murals and then some storytelling alongside those murals? There's also, have you all heard of the Mobile Music Box series? Have you seen? Okay, this is, yeah, it's an amazing, and it's an educational program as well. And during the shutdown, during COVID, the KC Symphony started the Mobile Music Box series, and it's a trailer that performs in different parks. So like, could we partner with them for a mural reveal as well and activate the arts in multiple spaces? But it's an amazing free free symphony concert or quartet experience for community members. And it's all in one. The trailer rolls up, they set it all up. They're ready to go usually around 6 p.m. or 7, and they do about a 45-minute concert, which is just great for the community to have these artistic experiences that are also very accessible. So yeah, there's a lot of potential to, and then there's community engagement projects too, like the Inglewood mural that's featured there as well. Like the possibilities are really endless. So it's just a matter of what kind of stories do you want to tell? How do you want to activate spaces? How do you want to get community members involved?
Yeah, and the Inglewood mural is obviously a unique kind of mural. It's an asphalt mural. Those became very popular in the last 10 years or so. Bloomberg has a big grant to do asphalt murals, I want to say, or at least he did. I don't know if it's still active, but he has a whole toolkit on his Bloomberg website of how to do asphalt murals. And I think there's a $20,000 grant, at least he was handing out at some point to different communities around America. But we got together in that photo there, though you see the sidewalk painted, the crosswalks painted. We got together and did that as a community effort. So the artist, we did an RFP, did a call for arts, the artist designed the mural, and then all the community members came out and participated in the painting. I will tell you, if it's on a high traffic street, they don't last super long. But for an alley or something, if you were thinking of activating a space like I think you guys might be, it would last a lot longer if there wasn't car traffic on it all the time. And so that, you know, thinking outside the box, the mural doesn't have to just be on a wall.
How do they do with foot traffic?
They last a lot longer. Yeah. I mean,
Just foot traffic?
mhm. And there are special paints you can get to make them last even longer, but they're very expensive. And so it's usually better just to.
And this might seem like a silly question, but I'm like a bureaucrat, so I have to ask. So does it have to be asphalt? Like, would that grant also be for concrete? Do they consider asphalt and concrete?
You know, I would have to look at the rules of the
Okay.
grant, but I don't think there was a difference between.
Okay, they might be interchangeable.
Yeah, interchangeable. Yeah. It was more about public byways, I think, was the whole idea. And so where people are traveling and trying to activating these spaces that aren't normally activated. And so I don't think it was about the material itself and more about the location.
GK, I was fascinated that you don't think about the economic impact of art, but I believe that statistic was 9.9 billion or
Yeah.
3.5% of the GDP.
Yeah, and it's gone up a little bit in Missouri. It used to only be 3% of the GPA, so the arts are rising. Part of that is there's other industries that weren't initially counted. So like graphic design or architecture, those weren't all together, but now those are all under the umbrella of the arts, which is why the GPA has gone up just a little bit over the last few years. I can tell you that hopefully by this time next year, we will have very specific data for Clay County. Arts KC, in partnership with a number of organizations, mainly the Americans for the Arts, does a economic prosperity study every 5 years. And normally they just do Kansas City as one big bucket. This is what it is for Kansas City. This is what it is for the state. But this year, their Arts KC has paid for them to drill down county by county. And so they're in that process of doing that study now. It involves a huge lift. Each county has to have over 800 surveys filled out and all kinds of data has to be collected. And Arts KC is in that process. They're almost finished, and then they'll hand it off to Americans for the Arts. And then they'll take about a year to put that data together, and about this time next year, we'll know exactly what our impact is for our, like, this county specifically, not just for the state. So more information is coming, but yeah, I mean, obviously at the national level, people see that there's a huge impact with the arts and how important it is.
I have actually a few questions, but my first thought when we're talking about this is to involve students at the school district. And of course, that's my role, right, is to try and make that connection and get them some experience. Have you done that with a student group?
Yeah, I
at that
mean,
age level?
I've personally done it with different groups, from 4-H to different students to this last summer, I went up to Camp Crowder at a state park and did a mural with a bunch of kids up there. So yeah, I personally had experience, but I think there's a way that you can build the RFP around that too. So you can request artists that want to work with the school group. But just so you know, when some of those things get involved, there might be more funding needed. Right, because if you're asking them to take time to go teach the students or work with them on the design or something, it's going to draw the process out more. It has to fall within a calendar year of school time.
There's also grants that there's also. I'm a big arts education advocate, so I'm like, yes. But there are also grants too that can cater to that too, that are looking for those arts education experiences too. But there's also, aren't we working with UMKC in Inglewood for their college students, but that project's in the works as well, activating students in UMKC for a mural project in downtown Inglewood. So that synergy of these educational experiences is definitely a possibility too. Yeah.
And then the other question that I had that came to mind is, how do you, when it comes to the actual art, right? Who makes that decision? And you've got artists who, right, they have their idea of what needs to be done. And I'm sure you have community members that might have a totally different idea. How do you merge those and come to consensus and then allow the artist to have that artistic license and make it beautiful in the way that they see? I would imagine that
Someone will always be mad. I'm just
Okay,
gonna say it now.
that was-
I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, you could just paint it blue and someone will be mad because they don't like that color, right? I mean, so it's never going to be perfect for everyone. They're going to want to know where the funding came from, you know, and so there's always going to be those questions. I think you do your work ahead of time. So, you know, either having a community listening session where you tell people what you're doing, you involve the community, as in like the business owners who own the building, the city is involved. You make sure you're doing all those checks as you're going down, so everyone has a little bit of a say. And then you would put together a review panel, or in our case for Parkville, there's two. There's going to be the initial review panel built of people from the Main Street Board, our extension program, and then a couple residents of the area, and then that'll have to go to the city and the full Main Street Board. So the Main Street Director, and then the full board will look at it. So there's also a multiple step review process that will happen. And then I think also making sure that you get things in writing. I mean, so you're going to have an MOU with the business owner, right? That we're going to put this mural up, and whether you hate it or not, it's going to be up for 2 years because we're going to pay for it, and you're going to sign off on that. I mean, so there's just making sure you're checking yourself down the road like you would do any business transaction. And you know, so just being a little more due diligent and just throwing paint on the wall. Any other questions from you guys? I mean, so I think it's important to note that we love these sort of projects and we would love to help you. We're heading towards fall, winter. And Elena, who's brand new and just being onboarded, is at capacity at the moment. So, you know, for this calendar year, it's probably not in our wheelhouse. But if you wanted to maybe do a planning session and work with the local, like if we could identify, if I could come up and help you identify, if I think there's an alley that we're thinking, because I've talked to several of you offline here, potentially, if we could think about identifying some spaces together, we could come back in December. We could bring those business owners or the building owners and some business people together, and we could do a planning session for spring of next year. And we could project that out if that's something you were interested in. But just to be honest about what our timeline looks like, I doubt we're going to be doing a mural in
This fall.
this fall. Yeah.
The last slide is our contact info too, so feel free to shoot us an email if you have any questions or want clarification. Again, we are excited about this possibility and the proposed phasing for it, and can definitely pick up the conversation towards the end of November, December. So
And I think we were clear in our presentation, but our hope would be that working with a community like this is that it's not, we don't just do a mural, then it's just
Right,
there.
right.
That we build other activation things around the space and the mural. And we plan that for part of the calendar year of next year if the mural does happen, so.
I have a question in terms of process. Is it easier to do things like this if you do public buildings versus private business owners?
No, not necessarily. It depends on your relationship with the business owners and or the public entity. I would imagine in the long run, public entities would probably be harder. Just because they're gonna have more rules and regulations. I don't think don't think here that's gonna be the case, but you would imagine in a larger city that they're gonna have rules on what you can put on their public building. It's gonna be a larger process. They might have to have a certain number of people employed in the process. There could be more things in place. So I imagine it would be harder on a public space. I don't imagine that's the case in Smithville, but yeah, it really just depends on your relationship. But since I think there's such a good relationship with many of the community members and the business owners here, I think it could go either way. Yeah. But you kind of, that's where you really want to start, right? If you find a place and you're saying, oh, these walls are the walls we like. And then you have a conversation with the people who own the building and the business owners there. Is that, are you getting a roadblock right away? Maybe that's a sign that you should pick a different wall or a different space, or maybe it's something that you need to finesse as a group. You need to get them on board, and that's something we can help you through some of those conversations. I can't promise people will listen to us, but we can tell people why it has a benefit to them and, and the community at large, but some people just won't care. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
I was just gonna add on, for timeline, since there is, budget consideration and say there's public improvements, we might want to definitely focus on the planning for it, but we are at the last minute for the budget for FY 24. So this might be more of a project for FY 25. Our fiscal year starts November 1. So then that would allow us to have more of those community conversations, the planning sessions, and then see what all we need so we can build a budget that would be sufficient for this type of project. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page because we're talking about timelines. So it might be pushed to a year from now, potentially.
When do they start doing the budget for FY 25?
We start the process in March for requests. So it is a long process. And then the board typically starts reviewing the budget considerations in May.
The other thing that we potentially could do down the road is just help it. We won't necessarily apply for you, but we could help you identify some alternative funding sources. So like Arts KC might have some funding. There's the Francis Family Foundation. There's the Halls Foundation. There's some other local people. You could also do like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe in the community. It really depends on, I think, scale and size of buildings and places you want to activate are really important because, you could be, on a huge downtown building, you could be spending $100,000, right? There's some very famous artists that come and live in your community for months and do this whole community engagement process and then paint these beautiful, huge murals, but they're going to be $30,000, right? Like we're spending 3 in Parkville, but they're 10 by 10 little spaces, right? They're not huge building size murals. So scale is going to be really important. And $3,000 isn't really a lot to fundraise. So, it could potentially happen sooner if your scale was at the right level. It can also happen that you don't have to paint them all at once. Like if you had a whole alley, you could start with a small portion and then build on. And that could be part of the phasing that we would help you lay out. So it doesn't all have to like just be the whole thing's painted and there's 20 murals down the alley that goes, so just things to think about. Well, thank you for your time. And I'm happy to answer questions at another time if something pops up. Gina and Kelly both know how to reach me, and Elena is also on the email with me as well. Like I said, when I started the meeting, I brought it back to my regional director last time I was here. And if you're interested, we do have a new horticulture specialist. So if you want to talk, I know you talked about the flooding in certain parts of Smithville. And if you want to have that sort of conversation.
In community gardens, I think.
And
we're
community
interested in
gardens.
community
I
gardens.
would love to have Todd come up to one of the meetings and be invited and let him have some time to talk about potentially what he could do or not do. I don't know, depending on what you needed.
What's Todd's last name?
Higgins, it's Dr. Todd Higgins. He's not new to horticulture, but new to us. He is a professor from Lincoln University, and he just moved to our region. He will be serving Clay, Platte, and Clinton and Buchanan counties. But you know, his majority of his focus is here in Clay. His office is in Clay County. So, you know, if you wanted to get him on the docket. We also have a gentleman that does workforce development. I know we talked about that last time, since being the EDC. And that he has a number of programs. So if you wanted him to talk about some of the programs he has. Farm stress program is one of his programs, which I think would be important to folks in Smithville, and helping with farmer suicide and just, you know, dealing with stress and things along those lines. He also has a Heroes to Hive program. So, you know, kind of how to teach people who are getting out of the military to be beekeepers and maybe have a side business doing small agro farming and stuff. So those are just two that come to my mind. That's Matt Piesold, Workforce Development.
GK, thank you, Elena. That's wonderful information. I think we will be able to build on this, not just with the arts, but all the, that was kind of the intent and originally when we invited you. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, I mean, Extension loves Smithville, so yeah, please have us back.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. Any other discussion on that item, or we can talk about it at the next meeting? And the next item on the agenda is just any updates on the work on the priorities. So if anyone has, I know some people are talking about reaching out to some businesses. So if anyone has reached out to new businesses or has any new items to share, feel free to do so.
This list in the order of priority or just a random?
It was just a list, just to
Okay.
remind people which ones we've already talked about.
Yeah, just if you could get the industrial info, because that would let us know whether or
yeah.
not it's even worth spending time trying to find anything if they have a new transfer station coming in. So we don't even know now how many lots are down there, because it's such a small. Jack there.
Yeah, I can provide that at the next meeting.
Where is that industrial zone? But east or west of the fire station or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's First Park right over there.
There's no other ground zone for industrial?
Yeah, the only other ground industrial is the post office area. That's
Yeah.
all industrial there. And in First Park, which is west of the fire station.
West of the post office?
Right, that entire
The
area
entire area back
is
there.
industrial, yeah.
Mhm.
But again, there's not much
There's not
land
much. There's
left.
not, yeah, that's why I wanted to know whether or not we're gonna try to go out and find someone. We need to know exactly how much is left there.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah. You wanna target the right place for the amount of space you have.
And there's no effort to add to the industrial zone? Is that what I'm hearing?
Right now, in the comp plan, they kind of limited the amount of industrial because they didn't want it to get taken over by all of these manufacturers. So that's why in the comp plan, they laid it out how they did. So currently, that's what the industrial lots are, but again, if someone comes to planning and zoning for review, that is on the table.
Or I assume 2030 when we go to review the comprehensive plan in general.
Mhm. Any other updates? Okay. Any new business?
I don't have any new business.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just, I think it'd be great to continue to build on what the University of Missouri Extension and maybe some of these other programs as well, because this takes time but I just think it was great
Mhm.
information.
I think maybe Gina and I can sit down and look at some of those grants that he mentioned, especially to see some alternative funding.
One think about too, who wants to maybe talk to the business owner or building owners.
Yeah.
Of the alleyway and just see if it's even a potential there. If not, then we can rethink the Humphreys alleyway or something, the alleyway there behind the
Yeah, like-
stage.
Adam and I talked yesterday about the public restrooms building down here on the square,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I think it was before I was active, but I believe the downtown businesses kind of fundraised for a good portion of the actual bathrooms and then worked with the city to have them constructed. I can't remember that exactly. So I think, that's the only two. Obviously, there's a process, but since it's a public restroom, I think it'd be a lot easier to get permission to paint on that. than
Mhm.
anything
And I
else.
did check with our development director. So we don't have in Parkville, he mentioned the process of it having to go through planning and zoning. We do not have that in our ordinances, but if it was a city building, then it would just need to go through city review. But it wouldn't need to go officially to the Planning and Zoning Commission for feedback.
And I asked about the Bloomberg grant for the asphalt concrete, because we also have the stage, all that's concrete, and that just generates heat. So if there's a possibility to do some type of light mural that could reflect heat, it would probably help when we have these events, when it's like 90 degrees out and we're in the concrete over there, where it just, that heat effect keeps coming up. So I wonder if something there might actually help cool that area down. And I assume that's public, that's his public
Mhm. Yeah,
property as well.
Yes, it
That's
is.
city
Yeah,
parklands,
it's the
yeah.
city property. Yeah. And I think we continue the arts discussion. We would invite Alyssa Sanders from the Main Street Executive Director, because again, I think it would be a nice partnership, especially if you guys want to roll it out smaller at first. And then I know Carol mentioned, we have businesses throughout the city, so it'd be nice to also include other business owners as well.
And Carol mentioned, because in a certain way, this could also be tied in to the real world learning program,
Mhm.
because, we look at the real world learning program mostly as probably skilled trades, but artists need to make a living too. And what opportunities are there for the artistic kids in Smithville to actually have a chance to do a big real world project and kind of have a chance for them to be in the spotlight. I used to be an athlete. It's easy for athletes to kind of get attention in a community. It's a little bit more difficult for kids that are not into sports.
Well, even like the woodworking and the
Yeah,
metal.
And real
because-
world learning is for
Mhm.
everyone, really, all of our students, not just the trades, not just our CTE. So yeah, but this is, another way for them to work through a project from start to finish, right? There's more to it than just painting. So that would be a big part of this, and I would want them to work with their instructor, their teacher through that whole process. That will make it a little more difficult, like he mentioned, because of the timelines in the school district schedule is not like anybody else's schedule. So, but I do want to make sure that we keep that conversation going so it doesn't get lost.
Would it make sense for when we invite Alyssa to invite whoever's the head of the high school art department to see whether or not it's even feasible for them to help
fit that into
coordinate?
their-
They may not even have the bandwidth.
Yeah, I would want to have that conversation, just to kind of talk about it and see if it's something that, the art teacher would be willing to work on. And there's a process that we have put together for projects that can, for any different type of project that I would hope she would want to use. And then absolutely, we would want to bring them.
Because I like that. I think getting the kids involved would be good for a project like this.
Are we looking this as a theme for specifically downtown or potentially a theme to carry out through the city? We, with the recent development of the car wash and the post office, we have massive retaining walls.
Mhm. I think right now is downtown and then eventually
Spread out.
as it,
Mhm.
we learn the process first, and how to.
Well, and I think we have to think about where is it going to draw foot traffic and really help with tourism. It's going to be easier for them to come downtown and snap some selfies, and
Yeah.
do a little shopping just to get them here into town. It would be a little more difficult in some other areas. But like you said, retaining walls that are not particularly attractive, and beautifying them as well. I think that's. a
And I
great
think
idea.
they were mentioning that things like this can be self-perpetuating. Like you get one successful kind of project and you can build off that. And then once you're done with the second, the next thing you know, now you have business owners coming to us instead of us having to go to business owners. So I think that's what they were talking about with like that forward progress. You don't just do one and done. And then the next thing you know, your community is known in the area as like an arts hub or a culture hub that helps bring in tourism. So that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
in some communities, they do, call for artists each year. And so then they know, okay, in April, Smithville's gonna post something about a call for artists. So I'm gonna have my idea ready for submission. So,
And obviously it doesn't have to just be murals.
yeah.
All types,
So it
yeah,
could be.
all
Mhm.
types of.
As I said, the container garden, just, we could bring in so much to beautify so many spaces.
I've got another question. Several months ago, we talked about the need for office space. Is there anything percolating on additional office space in Smithville? Cause I checked and my one contact and that space wasn't available. Is there anything else going on?
I had a phone call with Shane Crease, one of our pretty big developers here, and he was interested. I mentioned it to him that, we need some office space, obviously, that's
Your
not
favorite
down
Not in
here.
downtown.
That's not in downtown. And he said that, that'd be something he would think about, and that he'd probably want to try and research and make sure there was enough of a demand for him to warrant an entire new building or something, but obviously he's got stuff going up, so it's on his radar, but not necessarily guaranteed.
Ready already.
Yeah.
And way back when the old Dollar General, there was a possibility of redeveloping that into a co-working space.
Mhm.
I mean, we have, people that are traveling, and the airport is just right down the road. Some of those kinds of temporary office spaces, I think, could be utilized here. I mean, I know people that work from home that wouldn't love a place to be able to go and get away from family, right, to have a workspace. So I don't know, that's just something I still think is viable for this community.
There's some pretty cool shipping container offices,
Oh, yeah.
little like mini office buildings made from shipping containers that are really neat.
Madam Chair, on that note, I believe that commercial is just as important as industrial.
Yep.
We have a lot of land set aside for multi-use residential. But there has to be a balance. If you overload a community with multi-use residential, they have no place to work.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it should be thoughtful.
Absolutely.
The development around South Central Bank does not include any office space. That's all retail and
Fairview
hotel.
Crossing.
Yeah, as far as we know, it's mostly retail. But again, we don't get the tenant information
Mhm.
from developers, so.
I don't think there is anything zoned right south of the bank there for office, right? There was hotel. I'm trying to remember what was on there. It was hotel and then maybe
Wasn't there some retail?
multifamily
thought
and
it
then
was multifamily
retail
is what
and
I
then
thought.
maybe fast food. But I don't think there was any specific.
Would it be
office.
worth talking to the Fairview and letting them know, like, this is really what the community needs? If they haven't even started building yet, but
That
they've
is
already got.
Shane.
That is Shane.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that-
and they are pursuing the CID, which
Ah,
is funded
yeah,
by
yep.
sales tax
Never mind.
generation, so I think they are more interested in retail.
They're gonna have to
at
do
this
retail.
point.
Yeah, once you do a CID,
At
that's the
least
whole
for
point of
that
it.
spot anyway.
Yeah, for that spot. But again, I think continuing the conversation of this is a need in the community, and of the EDC sees this. So I think just having those conversations with people is helpful.
Where would you put an office space today? Where is it zoned that would allow for office space?
I can't tell
anywhere
that off the
commercial?
top of my head, but I can bring
Any of
that
the
Have to
commercial
pull up the
zones.
map, yeah.
information. Yeah, I
So-
can bring that kind of information back for the next meeting.
Or the next meeting, we could just pull it up on
Pull up
the
on the
G-
GIS
maps.
Yep, yep. See, it's easy.
Love that GIS.
Mm-hmm.
That was one other thing that Gina and I talked about today, was just maybe trying to come up with some sort of a template for everyone to follow when they are reaching out to different businesses or whatever, to kind of follow, whether you're speaking or emailing, that way, kind of what key points we want to discuss that are gonna be what they want to hear, or what the business needs to hear in order to come here and to be consistent with what we're saying when we do call these people.
Steve seems to like to reach out. I have this from Main Street. It's like the Smithville Community Profile Market Analysis here. This has kind of got everything you need for a pitch. I'm not really a pitch guy. I do the data.
One of, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of right now is getting this ground that's shovel ready. And what I mean by that is all the water, sewer, the base of the streets and sidewalks. There's a lot of that going on. And for years, been here 20 years. So really in the last 3 years, that started to happen because we had a tremendous amount of ag land just sitting. So it's encouraging to get that. And I know you have a ton of experience in the retail world to where those folks want to have that infrastructure there generally. So
Do you have any tips for us, John?
Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, the city is definitely on the right track. We have some inherent, unfortunately, geographic issues. The city doesn't have a lot of width. It has a lot of length. And in planning, a lot of people think, well, let's put all of this type of business in this section and all of this type of business here and all of this type of business at the other end of town. And in my experience, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. You want to blend businesses throughout the city to the best of your ability. You don't necessarily want to have every multi-use apartment complex all in the same area, and I think the city's is definitely on the right track. They have them in different areas of the city. So I'm very pleased. I look forward to the future.
I don't think
Anything else?
No.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Yeah, no, you can have that. Yeah.